This is this is this is the this is Anthony and Hallie. Yeah, awesome. Welcome, welcome. Oh my gosh, you remember. Thank you so much. She is such a sweetheart. She'll come in, sit up in the front, and there's times where I get a little bit dry from talking so much, and I ask, can you get me some water? And she goes and gets it to me. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. All right, team. So good morning. Happy Friday. All right. This is going to be a rapid fire class today just because we have a ALC right after. So I'm going to be done around 10, excuse me, about 11:10, 11:15. But there's a lot of great stuff on this, and everything, again, is recorded, and more so, the presentation will be sent out to as well, so you'll have it as well. So we're going to talk about condos and HOAs here in the state of California. I cannot say for other states, but here, what we need to know as real estate agents, because there's two components to this. One, the component is working with the buyer, right? And then two, working with the seller, okay? So either party, you still need to know the understandings of all of the ins and outs and how HOAs works, how to protect your clients, how to navigate it, and ultimately how to push it through to get it to the finish line, okay? Most of you know who I am, bless you. My name is Simon Cazares. I'm the team leader and the broker for multiple offices. So welcome to today's class. Let's move forward. All right, so what we'll cover today, why this matters, governing documents, financials, HOA packages, agent duties, and red flags to be aware of, right? And that's important because a lot of the deals that we see right now that are falling apart is because we go into escrow, and then ultimately we get all of the, HOA documents, and now it red flags, okay? The lender may see something that they just say, I don't know if this is something that we're gonna need. We need to ask more information or get clarity over it as well. So let me admit some people in here. Okay. All right. Oh, shoot. Knew that was gonna happen. 1 second here. All right, so condo is not just real estate. Real property, corporate governance, and shared liability, okay? Part of, having a condominium or townhomes, most of them have, HOAs, right? Which is a good thing, right? Some people say, well, that's an additional monthly expense, right? Yeah, it is, but that's what covers the umbrella of exterior stuff like roof, landscaping, sometimes trash and water, right? Depending on how big the condominium complex is, okay? You're selling into a financial ecosystem, okay? So it's not just about the unit, but understanding the ins and outs, more so when you represent either party, right? A buyer going through the motions of buying a condominium, right? And sometimes it's a, kind of a starter home for a lot of us, right? It's like, okay, we had one of our agents yesterday, Teresa Workman, talking about a new construction development up in PV, right? And being in PV, there's multi-million-dollar properties up there, but the starting condominium there is around 600 to 700,000, right? And for the one thing that they look into in moving into a community is usually what? The schools. Yeah, the schools. So it's a great way to get into a particular neighborhood and more so the school systems. All right, what's in stake when it comes to condominiums and HOA? A bad HOA, unsellable property, right? Weak HOAs, right? Loans can be denied because their financials not up to par, right? And I've seen a lot of situations where HOA's financials are really bad. It's like running a business. And if you don't have the right leadership involved, then it can be chaotic and chaos, and it can make it very difficult to sell a unit. Poor reviews, lawsuits, exposures, right? How many times have you seen on title where there's a pending litigation going on? And it's like, why is the HOA being sued, right? Well, it's because things are not being done properly, right? So you got to make sure that you understand the elements as you're going, because you don't want to go into an escrow and know that you're going to have to fall out of escrow because there was a potential pending lawsuit or something that the lenders are just not going to approve it. Make sense? Okay. One second. Let me admit some more people in here. All right, part one is governing documents, the foundation, everything else is built into, right? So understanding, what you're going to be looking into when it comes to your position, right? So CCNRs, okay? What does CCNRs stand for? Anyone? It's super easy.
The covenants and restrictions.
Yeah. Yes. CCNRs, covenants, conveys, and restrictions. Basically, the rules and regulations of the HOA. What to scan for, what you should be looking for, any restrictions, right? Because there's a lot of restrictions, and if you're not reading and your clients are not reading it, they may get themselves in a situation where their intent was to rent this place and they cannot rent it because they've already maxed out, right? So you got to be careful in how you navigate these documentations as well. Rental caps and minimum lease terms, right? Airbnb and short-term rental beds, right? Most people think because the property is in the coastal area, right? We got beautiful ocean views, but there's restrictions. They may not allow, short-term leases or Airbnb, right? And a lot of it, like especially Manhattan Beach, they don't allow any Airbnb. So be mindful of that stuff. Maintenance and responsibility by parties, right? Insurance allocations, HOA versus owners, architectural control and remodel approvals, right? Maybe you want to do something to the unit, but you got to go through the approval process with HOA, and they may not want you. You may want to modify it different, but it has to be uniform with all of the other units, right? So these are the things that you need to be mindful and prepare to have those conversations with your clients. Make sense? Red flags, right? Rental caps already maxed out, right? Maintenance language, overly restrictive rules, and shrink by buyer pool too, as well, right? Because there may be a lot of things in there that may restrict a buyer for wanting to move forward, right? So, in essence, we have to be practical, but more so we have to be in alert and explain how all this works, right? When the HOA documents comes, we just kind of toss it to the buyer, and the buyer says, you got to review all of this stuff, right? Now, who would be the best person, right? Who would be the best person to get all of the clarity and answers? Who do you think would be the best person? Is it the agent? Is it the sellers? Okay. Well, it's a combination of a lot of people, right? But the source and the core would be HOA, right? Speaking with the HOA, there's usually president. There's someone that handles all this. And you know what? I've seen situations too with even the HOA president doesn't know. And they need to get clarity as well, right? But more so is, yeah, it's the seller, right? If the seller has been there for a very long time, they should know the ins and outs of it. And the listing agent should have a base, right? Not that they need to know everything, but they should know something about, the community. Yes, Anthony.
Yeah. Is there like an overall governance of these HOA boards or state that, I feel like I should know this, but I'm getting more involved now that with all the insurance issues that are happening, under coverage of and HOA condo complex not being warrantable.
Yeah.
Losing a lot of first-time home buyers because of that.
Right.
Board that oversees HOA boards, or is that just made up? Again, random people who are reading the documents and reading the laws and just fair housing and statutory stuff, making up their own rules as they go along.
Yeah. It really depends, right? I've seen some very small HOAs that are running them more efficient than larger ones. Yeah. But then I've seen large HOAs, they're running it very efficient. Usually they have a governing board involved, right, that makes the big decisions, right? If a roof needs to be replaced, it has to go through the boards. And obviously, the members, which are the owners, right, who are sharing some of the expenses, right? This is why we contribute each and every month our fees, right? But in essence, what if the financials were not up to par, right?
Or it's just
Exactly.
somebody that you can, or is that just?
Yeah, it's one of those very unique situations where, and this is why they get into a lot of lawsuits, literally because they're not running it efficiently. There's a lot of issues and gaps and challenges with it. And this is why owners end up, hiring attorneys, and that's when they expose everything, right? But to answer your question, Anthony, it really depends. Larger ones do have, departments that probably do so, but it's, it really depends on the situation.
Sure.
Yeah. All right, so let's continue. So bylaws, how the power works. What do they govern, right? The board structure, right? Usually you have someone that oversees the entire HOA, and then there's divisions from there, right? People that ultimately make decisions based on, the HOAs, the properties, right? They have what they call voting majority, right? If there has to be major decisions being made, right, and frequent meetings too. If you've ever owned or lived in a complex that has HOAs, they should be having, monthly meetings regarding the conditions of the units, and more so what direction, if anything. And they should also provide you with the profit and loss, right? The balance sheets as well, to see what is the revenue that the HOA has, right? And more so, what are the expenses, right, that are being also allocated for that, right? And when there's an efficient HOA running at a very high level, then you see everything is up to par. The landscaping, right? Everything is beautiful. And then you go to other HOA complexes that are just really, really bad, right? Those are some big indicators that I would encourage all of you to be mindful is when you go to a complex is how does the landscaping look? Are they maintaining it, right? That's a big indicator as well. And I've seen situations. There was one many years ago on a very small community, right? There was probably 25 units. And out of it, the HOA was very low, at about $150 per month. But you walk in there and it's like, man, it looks really, really bad. The landscaping, dry grass. I mean, it just looked really, really bad. The pool, horrible. So in that perspective, I'm already thinking, okay, what does their financials look like? Because if they cannot do the minimum, right, the minimum of landscaping, why would people want to move into and, contribute to the HOAs? Just be mindful of stuff like that. Red flags to be alerted of, right? Dysfunctional board, right? I've seen circumstances where the boards are not all in alignment, where everyone is not seeing the vision of what the HOA is and should be doing, right? Is there meetings on a frequent basis? Review past minutes for evidence of deadlocks, lack of curriculum, or unregulated procedures, right? All of this is a good indicator that, your client who is a buyer will not have any financial issues down the line, right? And you think like, well, that HOA is extremely high, right? And I've seen high as $15 to $2,000 for HOA only, but it has all kinds of different amenities. That includes the gym, right? It includes other amenities there as well. So be mindful that a strong HOA has the backing and the financial for future stuff, right? But also look at the complex too. When was the complex built? Was it a complex that was built in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, or something current, right? Because that will determine wear and tear as well, especially like roof, right? Or plumbing. I've noticed a lot of issues when it comes to plumbing as well. Plumbing is one of the biggest factors right now. Who is responsible for plumbing? Okay. Well, when you think about it from a perspective of an owner, who's responsible if it's a single family residence and plumbing issues, right? Well, the homeowner is. Well, what about the sewer line? Who's responsible? Well, the owner is still responsible. It's from the connection of the city to the homeowners, then that falls under the city, right? Well, kind of similar when it comes to HOA. Anything internal is still the responsibility of the homeowner. Okay, but when it's once it's connected to the actual sewer line, then that's depends because there may be a little bit of a break from the owner's responsibility when the HOA will take responsibility, and then more so when the city will take the responsibility of any repairs that need to be done. Inconsistent rule enforcement, analyzing the application of rules to check for bias or special treatments of certain members. Again, you got to be mindful of everything when you're going through the motions of, looking at a particular condominium. It's not just because the condominium has all the bells and whistles. You got to look at the structure and financials as well to make a sound determination if this property is ideal for your clients. Because they may hit everything that the buyer wants, but then we have a roadblock, right? Because the lender cannot fund it, right? So you got to look at all perspectives when it comes to that. Rules and regulations, your day to day, okay? Parking, okay, maybe a factor too. Depending on how many bedrooms your condominium has, will determine how many parking structures you'll have too. Pets, does the pets allow? Maybe you have restrictions when it comes to pets, right? Or maybe you're allowed or not allowed to have but only one pet or two pets. Okay, things that you need to be mindful. Noise and leases, right? Leases is one of the biggest ones too, where we've seen in the past a buyer buying it as an investment, thinking that they're going to be able to use it as a rental. And then the HOA will send a demand letter saying, hey, this is not considered a rental. You have to be the owner living in the property. Well, no one told me this. Yeah, well, it's part of your HOA documents that there's a restriction and percentage of allowance. And then once that allowance is maxed out, you cannot lease any other future units, right? So you have to look at the pros and cons, because if a buyer who you represent is looking, right, is looking to buy it as an investment, well, that may be the restrictions where they will not allow it, and that may kill the deal, right? So be mindful of stuff like that. And more so on the flip side, as a listing agent as well. Think about it from that perspective. You get an inquiry or someone that is talking to you about possibly, using it as a rental, as an investment, right? Well, you got to be mindful of the situation and maybe ask additional questions. Ask the seller or even reach out to the HOA. Is there a percentage that we're at right now? Maybe they're at 30% and the max is only 50%, right? So you still have a little bit of leeway to allow someone that may be interested in investing and for the purpose of renting out the unit, right? Make sense? Okay. Easier to change the CCNRs, but buyers still need to read them, right? And again, I know it can be this much paperwork. I know it's tedious and I know it's a lot of paperwork, but also be mindful when representing a buyer. Say, just like any other documentation, sit there and read everything. Make sure that you're completely satisfied with the overall condition of the property, which is one thing, documentation, seller disclosures, but more so HOAs, because there may be hidden stuff and restrictions that are not allowed, and that may alter us from moving forward, right? I rather know ahead of the time than too late, right? When we're about to close or we even close, right? And also, when representing the seller, be proactive on this and start having those conversations early about getting the documentations. If the intent is for the seller to sell the property, right? Well, proactively get the paperwork already. So that way you're in a position, right, to now be able to review those documents too. And if any questions come up, right, And most of these questions may be when you're hosting an open house. You'll have at least a base of understanding of what the HOA, CCNR's bylaws will indicate, right? And most of it is really, what is the HOA, right? What are the restrictions? Be mindful, but also understand you got to know at least the minimum stuff that is, the current stuff that is part of the HOA. Okay. Most buyers remorse equal rules they didn't read, right? Most people, yeah, because they didn't understand or didn't read it, now they get cold feet. It's like, well, you know what? If I knew about this, I would probably went in a different direction, in my opinion, right? So, again, looking at it from two faucets, right? From a seller's perspective and a buyer's perspective, you got to be mindful and be thorough with these documentations because, again, it can be from a deal being canceled, a condo that cannot be sold, and you put in all of the efforts as a listing agent, right? And ultimately, the listing becomes a cancel because you just cannot sell the unit. All right, let's get into the financials. This is where deals live and also deals die, right? Okay. This is what the banks, the lenders look at is the financials, right? Because they get a copy of all of this information. So the HOA budget, what they analyze, right? Income and expenses, no difference in running a business, right? They look at all of the income that comes in, which is what is the revenue here? The revenue is the owners contributing each and every month to the HOA. And if you get more owners not paying the HOA, what happens? What throws off the profit and loss, right? So the income and expenses are the dues that can ultimately make it a good property to purchase or a property that is not worth doing so. Now, and I'm talking deals that are with loans involved, right? Not necessarily cash deals. Cash deals is a different ballpark. Okay. But most people will go in there with a traditional finance involved, right? FHA, VA, or conventional, right? Those are the ones that the underwriter will definitely dissect and look into to make sure that it's something that they're willing to approve. But more so, the risk involved is that the owner will stop making the mortgage payment. This is why they look at all of the financials to make sure that it's up to par, right? Some of the things that are red flags, operation deficiency, deferred maintenance, hidden in the numbers, right? All of this can be something that will alter the position that the bank may approve the loan, right? One of the biggest one, as I mentioned, is the roof, right? I used to own a condominium in El Segundo, and part of it was the swimming pool. Okay, they got three bids, and out of those three bids, we all agree that $80,000 was the number. We had one for I think a little over 100,000, and then we had another one that was just a little less than $80,000. But we went with the 80,000 because they had all of the backing, the licenses, the insurances, and they were able to meet the expectations to get it done within a certain period of time. So part of it was when we all got together and met with the president is, what would you like to do? Would you like to contribute and put in the total amount, or would you like to be in the monthly and increase your HOAs? Thank goodness that everyone decided, let's just go ahead and put the amount in, and then we all did so, and everyone contributed to it, and we were good to go. And then they started the initial process, right? The demo, and ultimately getting the pool up to par, right? With all of the licenses that are needed, but it also enhances it in the future, right? Because the ability to be able on the summer to go swimming on a renovated swimming pool is the whole purpose, just like any property, right? You do windows, you do landscaping, you do a roof, it enhances the beauty and also the value of the property as well. Artificial low dues equals deferred prices, right? Remember, when you're looking at it, it's only common sense, right? You see the income coming in and you see the expenses, right? something is off, then these are things you need to start asking questions, right? And more so, the buyer as well, asking those conversations with the listing agent and getting clarity from the sellers. Because if a seller has been there for 10, 15 years, they're going to know the history, right? There's nothing that is more annoying than your 20 days, 30 days in, and ultimately the deal falls apart because the lender cannot approve it. So be mindful of stuff like this. So the reserve studies, the most important document, right? So obviously, if you look at this little example, you have acceptable, strong, and dangerous, right? What it shows, future repairs, roof, elevators, and plumbing. You know, how many HOAs have elevators? Okay. That could be a very, very expensive maintenance where a lot of them, because of the elevators, are super, super low because of the regular maintenance and the inspections that need to be done to be in compliance with the city and also with the state as well, right? What does this mean is the HOA financials prepare for a very expensive, right? Because if you are a homeowner owning a condominium, you want everything to work properly, especially when you're in that position that you need to sell this place, right? Selling this place when you have an unoperable elevator is not going to be a good sell, right? Especially if it's an elderly person, right, that needs to utilize the elevator from the subterranean parking to get to their third floor complex, right? That's a problem. But because the HOA's financials are not up to par, that can be a crucial position that you may not be able to sell the property because of certain things that these complexes have, right? So be mindful of stuff like that. Low reserves equals future special assessments, right? Because when you have certain things that are major, now we have to take the initiative of what we need to do to put the reserves in place. Either a lump sum, increase the HOAs, and there's no real max to it. Because if something needs to be done, it's going to have to be done one way or another. Someone is going to have to pay for it. And who does it come out of? Well, the homeowners that are paying their HOAs. Balance sheets, snapshot of the HOA's health, cash on hand, right? Some of part of the balance sheets, it'll tell you what exactly are the reserves. If they have a very strong reserves there, then you know that any future issues, right? They have the backing to do so. And also be mindful too that they may do some type of credit as well. I've seen HOA companies too. We're gonna use credit instead of using our reserves to get the ball rolling. Let's just say that it's $100,000 project that needs to be done. They may be able to do some type of line of credit in order to borrow to take care of it, and now the responsibility falls on the owners. Reserves and account balances, funds set aside for long-term capital projects, liabilities and loans, outstanding debts and financial obligations. All of those are very important when you're looking at it. It's the true heartbeat, of the HOA, where they stand, where does it look like in the next 3 to 5 years too is important, right? Because again, the buyer that's buying a place may not feel the pinch right now, but in 5 years, they're going to feel the pinch. At least you know where the trajectory of this is going with, right? So keep that in mind. Low liquidity cannot cover emergencies, right? Now, what could be some of the major emergencies that may happen? Anyone? What's that? Okay, yeah. Yeah, think of it from external, not internal, okay? Because the internal, the homeowner is responsible, but think outside the box. If the HOA is responsible, they're responsible for outside stuff, right? So think of some of the stuff that may need to be done, right? Pavements, maybe the driveways, right? Maybe they need to paint emergencies. Balcony, yes, balcony may be another one. Absolutely. With all of that stuff. What was it? Yeah, gates as well. Maybe termite. No one has talked about termites, but what if it's a big complex and termite is one of those big element expenses, right? So again, these are some of the things that you need to be mindful as well, and it's okay to ask, do we know when was the last time a termite was done on it, right? Was it 3 years ago, 10 years, or never, right? So keep that in mind as well. Now, most of the stuff, and I'm looking at it from just a unit perspective, you're the buyer agent representing the buyer. You're still going to do a termite, but it's just the termite within the actual unit itself, which is very, very minimal, right? But the severity is when you're, 14 units in one particular complex, right? And now everything is all tied together and you have to do a fumigation and all that stuff, right? Or rodents too, as well. There might be a lot of rodents as part of it, and they need to do regular maintenance and services, right? So there's many things that you've got to look at it from that perspective. P&Ls. All right. So income statements and patterns, right? Consistent deficiency, right? So repeated losses and due increases, right? So if we see a cycle where 5 years ago we were here and now we're here, and now the projections in the next 2 to 3 or possibly 5 years, where do we stand? Now, a lot of people don't think about all this stuff, but remember, the owners and the future owners are the ones that are involved and are the ones that are making the monthly payments on HOAs. They're the ones that get impacted the most, right? Because if there's consistently increase, that's a problem, right? And then when the banks are looking at all of the expenses and the HOAs, they look at all of these trends as well. And this is where we see situations where the banks will not approve these loans. So be mindful and ask questions. Okay, that's the key. Ask questions. Special assessments, one-time charge for major repairs. It could be a small 10,000, or it can be a 50,000 or even more. A one-time charge levied on all owners when reserves fall short of repair costs. If you miss this, you just your cost may be to the buyer, a substantial amount. So again, part of it is, and I've seen situations and circumstances where a buyer buys the place and then they're hit with an assessment. And it's like, I did not know about the assessment. No one disclosed that to us. And the sellers knew about it because 5, 6 months ago, they received letters that they were going to increase the HOA fees and they were going to put an assessment. And they failed to provide that, right? And I've seen circumstances where HOA too doesn't have it. And they'll say, yeah, 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 all the homeowners were given letters to it, right? That's a problem, right? Because a lot of people were not expecting to move into a place and now be in the burden of paying a substantial amount towards repairs. So keep that in mind as well. Delinquencies, rates, and financial killers, right? So look at it from that faucet, lender risk zone. What is the percentage of owners not paying their dues? All right. All of that should be part of the conversations that you need to have either with HOA, the sellers, or the documentations, because all of it has to be very transparent. All of that information needs to know what are the percentage of owners that are paying, because you'll see the lack of income coming in, right? That's a problem. Why is that happening? Okay. Maybe may not be the best unit because we see lack of this, lack of that, right? Let's go find another condo that doesn't have these problems. Just saying, right? What causes it, right? Conventional FHA lenders may deny the loan in its entirely. Delinquencies, your buyer's financial falls apart in the escrow, right? We don't want to go into the motions of it and the deal falls apart because, the HOAs has some problems as well. So be mindful of that as you're going in and ask a lot of questions. And I'm going to continue saying that, throughout the presentation is ask questions, get deep into the conversation. And if they don't have it, find the people that do so, right? Because you don't want this to come back several months after the deal closes and your clients are reaching out to you, it's like, boom, why do we get this assessment? Why do we have this, right? And now you're kind of in a situation in the middle of this, trying to, answer those questions. HOA documents and packages, requirements and what it reveals. So California seller disclosures, CC&Rs, bylaws, rules and regulations, current budget, financial statements, reserve disclosures, insurance summaries, and meeting minutes too. Those are important. This is one of the important ones too, as part of the HOA documents, is your minutes, your meetings, and all that, right? Because these are what we're having on a regular basis that will give us a reinsurance of what they're talking about. What is the heaviest of conversations we're having? And if everything is up in par, then you're not going to see major concerns. These are the seller's legal obligations, not optional and not part of the negotiations as well. So be mindful of stuff like this too, because this is crucial and important for all of us to be educated. Now, remember, all of it falls on the responsibility of the buyers and sellers, but we also, as real estate professionals, need to be kind of up in par with this too. So that way, when something is thrown at us, we at least know what direction to go. Hey, this is a great question. Let me talk to the listing agent, and maybe the seller can have that information for us, or maybe we can escalate it to possibly the HOA. The meeting minutes, hidden gold, active lawsuits, right? All of that is right there, right there. Okay, we got these lawsuits happening. Okay, what are these lawsuits about, right? It can be as small as the mailman suing the HOA because of a restricted dog, that was loose. I don't know. I'm just saying those are vital and important. Or is it the homeowners that are suing the HOA for lack of transparency, right? Issues with repairs, deferred maintenance, or there may be conflicts between the board. I don't want that president. That president is not doing a great job, right? There's so many different variables, right? It's good to know all of this information. That's where the minutes come into play, because it'll tell you the history and the decisions that are being made, right? And that'll also tell you where the trend of the HOAs also is going, right? Is it going in a positive way, or is it going in a negative way? Very important to know. Be mindful of that. All right, so let's get into agent role and listing side, right? Your job and to risk and mitigate this and not to conceal, right? Because again, you have a fiduciary responsibility in order for both your clients, right? The buyers and also the sellers. So if there's something that needs to be divulged and disclosed, you want to make sure that you document that. What you must do as a listing agent. Okay, again, just certain things that you should be looking for, right? Pre-list audit, order HOA documents before going on the market, right? Asking the questions with your clients. Hey, look, I know we're going to be going live on the market coming soon, whatever the case may be, but let's get the ball rolling. Let's get the HOA documents. So that way we have copies ready to go. So that way there is no delay whatsoever. Position the HOA, lead with amenities and reserves and stable dues. Disclosure aggressively, okay? Assessment, litigations, and restrictions. Price strategy, okay? When it comes to a weak HOA, equals discount. Strong HOA is premium, right? These are valuable points and positions, right? Because if there is a strong HOA, then, it's running very efficient. It's going to be a premium condominium to sell, right? So that's a good position for you as a listing agent, right? And that's a good position also to sell the value to your clients that are looking to buy in this particular community, right? Okay. Avoid common mistakes. No docs late, no guessing, no marketing blind, right? Again, don't be that agent that is way, because I see this quite often. The buyer's not releasing all contingencies. And I says, what type of property is it? It's a condominium. Has the HOA been given? No, we haven't received the HOA yet. Why? Well, they just got order. Okay, how long have you been in escrow? Well, we've been in escrow for 14 days. Holy moly, that's a problem. Definitely a problem, right? Be proactive. Start that immediately. Immediately. Okay. That way you have everything ready to rock and roll with the seller disclosure. Here, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, here's everything that we're providing. Make your decision if this is a property you want to move forward, or is the property that you don't want to move forward. Okay. That's a good position. That's a great agent that is diligent and proactive. Agent role, buyer side. Protect the buyers from problems they cannot see, right? Again, your responsibility is to take care of your client's best interests. Your job, protect the buyer from future problems. Document review, don't summarize, don't interpret, right? Financial awareness. Lenders check reserves, delinquencies, and litigations. Reserves assessments and litigations and coverage. Lifestyle fit, can they rent, have pets, remodel, right? All of these are vital and important, because if there is certain restrictions, this may not be the right property. And if we do not let them know and they don't see this and they buy the property and they realize they're being hit with violations left and right, that's a problem. They're going to blame someone and they're going to go after us as real estate agents. That HOA equals loan denial, late in escrow, lifestyle mismatch, and emotional deal falls out, right? They may love the condo, but the heartbeat, the internal aspect is the HOA, which is the make it or break it type of deal, right? I want to make sure that I can finish it throughout the time frame of our escrow, and not have to go now find another property that we could have been proactive on and ultimately avoid any delays whatsoever, right? So keep that in mind, okay? I am almost done, folks. I'm looking at my time. Critical red flags. Know these hold, right? Financials low, reserves high, delinquency, frequent assessments, legal active litigations, already things that we have already explained, the construction deficiency claims, operation poor management, dysfunctional board, use restrictions, rent caps, pet bans, parking limitations, right? Maybe an individual has multiple vehicles, right? But they only allow so many vehicles per unit. So be mindful of stuff like this, right? Because this may not be the right condominium. If you remember nothing else, here are some of the most vital as part of your understanding as a real estate professional. 1, CCNRs equal lifestyle plus restrictions. 2, financial equals future risk. 3, minutes equal truth. 4, reserves equal deal killers or deal savers. And 5, your job is identifying risks, not explaining it. Okay, that's our job. And that concludes our class. Know the HOA, protect your clients, protect yourself. Any questions?
Yes, Simon.
One second. We got someone here in the class.
I had a deal in escrow and we were doing our due diligence. And we looked at the reserves. And it's like, we had to figure out, all right, they clearly don't have money for all the repairs for this building.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you're going to take $30,000 hit at some point.
Right.
So it's very disappointing, but yeah, like you said, I just had to explain it.
Right.
And let them make the decision.
That's right. Yeah. No, good point, Joe. Thank you. Who had a question on Zoom?
This is me, Omer.
Hey, what's happening?
So I was thinking, to be realistic, the clients, especially first-time home buyers, are counting on us to kind of guide them through the HOA docs. So what I usually do is I put it to ChatGPT, make a summary. But then after seeing this, I was thinking if I add a disclaimer saying something like, "Listen, I made this through ChatGPT. It's by no means like comprehensive or anything. This is just something I came up to make it easier, but we should not be held liable or something, related to this. Like just adding a disclaimer in the email when we're putting the summary, would that be, I don't know, kind of like a good thing to do, or what do you think?"
Yeah, good point. Good question. Remember, don't rely heavily on ChatGPT. All right. Especially, with everything going on, you always want to reach to your office, speak with leadership, and ask those questions. Okay. Because ChatGPT is going to agree with you 100% that you're right on anything and everything that you say, right? You have to have proper commands and how you navigate those conversations, right? And we're here as resources as well. So, if anything, reach out to us. But yeah, absolutely. If you understand and if you've done a lot of real estate transactions involving condos, then yeah, you'll sense to understand the initial process and how to navigate, right? And looking for those particulars, I guess, to navigate and say, look, these are some of the things that I'm seeing here. What's your thought in your position here, right? So look at it from all those perspectives.
Simon, I have a question. When the owner
Yes.
when the owner sold all the units, and now who's control the HOA? Only the new owners, or still the old owners involved in the HOA?
Repeat the question again. I'm sorry.
Okay, when the owners sold all the units, who's control the HOA? The new owners or the old owner is still involved with the HOA?
No, once the owner takes possession and they're the official owners to the property, then the new owner is responsible, not the previous owner.
Thank you.
Okay, someone else. Yes, you have your hand raised.
Yes, my name is Robert. There's
Hey, Robert.
there's a condo at the Village of Redondo that has listing supplements. So if anyone wants to look at CCNRs and the property inspection report, just as a sample, they can look at that. I can give you the MLS number if you want.
Yeah, send me an email. Let me take a look at it, and then I'll reach out to you later this afternoon. We can discuss it.
Well, I don't need to discuss it. I'm just saying that if somebody on the call here wants to look at take a look at the HOA, the CCNRs and stuff.
Yeah.
Just an example to use if they want to just look at it.
Perfect. All right. I appreciate that information. Thanks, Robert. Always great to see you. Just a couple comments here. Yeah, you're right. Plumbing leaks, carports. Yep. Weatherproofing, exterior building. Absolutely. So yeah, all of those as part of the conversation is, yeah, that can also increase your HOA. So again, any additional questions here? Yes, Anthony.
As well is, most areas have their local area HOA disclosures. It's important as agents to go over all the things that come in through escrow with our buyers and our sellers, but make sure that we're explaining also that, they're signing a disclosure saying that they are reading and understanding these documents. Right. For HOA for questions because of liability issues.
That's right.
Stay in my lane. I don't want to get sued over something that I didn't let them know.
That's right.
CCNR that they didn't not to read on their own. So
that's right.
It's a liability issue saying that you're responsible for this. You're signing a document saying you're doing such. So
exactly. Yeah. Good point. Very good point. Yeah. That's part of the initial process when it comes to documentation. And it says very clear, you acknowledge, you understand, and you're signing, right? So the burden and the liability falls on them, right? Because they can't come back and say, well, I didn't know what I was signing. Well, you acknowledge, you understood, and you signed for it, right? So be mindful of stuff like that.
This kind of TCs, and sometimes we don't even know, like we're to send out the document.
Yeah.
Explaining things clearly. So
exactly. Very good. All right. Well, that concludes our class. Thank you very much for all of you on Zoom. Have a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend, and go out there and make some deals. Thanks, everyone.